are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Taking a breath. Sometimes plans just don't go according to my schedule. Isn't that kind of the crux of anxiety, right? I want it to go this way. I plan for it to go this way. I anticipate it to go this way. And yet the illusion is that I have control. So ironically, maybe not so ironically, I'm talking about anxiety. And I thought I'd share with you today my last known cognizant episode as an anxiety attack. Now, I've never, at least not in the last 25 years, been diagnosed with anxiety disorder. It's more or less a condition that I visit, right? And in fact, there are definitions of anxiety that will basically articulate anxiety as either a trait or a personality/condition. Sorry, personality trait or a temporary condition. That's what I'm trying to say. In which case, I think as a younger person, I probably had anxiety more as a quality. It wasn't necessarily a genetic trait. It was something that I learned as a way of being, and it was pretty much prevalent. I was always a bit anxious, always a bit jittery, always a bit on edge. But that mellowed as I grew and as I matured, and I believe gained confidence and competence. But this idea of anxiety as being a condition, a circumstance that is addressed, is faced, is dealt with or not dealt with, is directly related to the skills I have in coping. And the older that I've gotten and the more that I've integrated yoga practices, yoga philosophy, the more I've been able to manage, cope with these instances. Case in point, I was on an international retreat trip that I was helping to facilitate and lead in Peru. And as a personal challenge to my comfort, it was enough to be just in Peru, in a foreign country, a country whose language I don't speak. But I also took it as an invitation, a challenge, an opportunity to take a surfing lesson. Now, the background of the story is that I was already a bit on edge. I don't know that all of my travel companions knew that I was on edge, but I was on edge in a way that was broader than even the context of our retreat. We were leading a group retreat with 20 some odd students, and there was at least that many staff members. We were doing it kind of as a dual retreat for the studio I worked with and traveling to the second home of one of my peers. So it was through the invitation of this collaborative group that I went on the retreat to be part of the hosting team, the teaching team, to lead a yoga-based retreat in Peru. And all in all, it was a great experience for me personally, even though it was so on the edge of my comfort. So to put it in a blunt sort of way, I was kind of feeling like I needed to prove myself. That was probably the overall kind of theme in the back of my head. Prove myself as a part of this team, prove myself as a contributor and a collaborator, as a valuable member, and that I could travel internationally, right? I was traveling with some very seasoned travelers, international seasoned backpackers, like folks who were hardcore. So I think that was part of the undercurrent. But then when I took a surfing lesson, I had kind of forgotten a little bit about the nuance of wearing glasses. Like I always wore contacts when I was younger. And so surfing, I needed to wear my contacts. Otherwise, I wasn't going to be able to see anything at all. Now, there's a layering here. First, remember, I don't speak Spanish. I was told that this surf instructor spoke English. She did not. She understood enough English words to give me the one word cues for someone who was learning to surf, but not someone who was learning to surf while overcoming a language barrier and a deep, deep fear of the ocean. Now, I've been to the ocean. I don't love swimming in the ocean. Truth be told, I don't even love just sitting on the edge of the ocean and feeling the water pull the sand away from. I don't love that, right? There's so many things. So I came to the conclusion that I don't speak ocean either. So now I don't speak Spanish and I don't speak ocean and I'm not a surfer, but I've hired this gal. And the truth is it's cheap. I mean, the exchange rate on the dollar is super cheap. So in essence, I'm paying about the price that I would pay for a group practice of yoga to have an hour-long private surf lesson. We start off on the beach, right? And she's just telling me, she draws like a sand outline of a surfboard, which I'm borrowing a surfboard. I'm borrowing a wetsuit from this, vendor or whatever on the beach. So I'm only assuming that this is all going to work. I've got a life jacket on, so I'm feeling relatively like I'm prepared. But the contacts are about 2.5 years old. In other words, they're not my current prescription that I'm wearing, but I was grateful to have them. So distance is okay. Up close, not so great because I've gotten older, my eyesight has changed. So I've got the right attire on. I'm wearing contacts in preparation for being in the water, but I'm out of practice wearing contacts. So I know that splashing water is going to make that interesting as it is. Anyway, long and the short of it is we do about a dozen jumps, which is basically you jump from standing to the floor or to the earth. And the harder is to jump up from your belly lay onto your feet. And I still don't know how it's supposed to be done, but she acted like I was supposed to be able to levitate and then get my feet underneath me. There was no push-up allowed, right? It wasn't a matter of inchworming my knees underneath me. I was supposed to levitate right up to standing, which I was already feeling like I'm a failure at this. And now you're going to make me go out in the water. So here's where the anxiety really starts to tickle. She is behind me and I'm on I'm using a kickboard. Oh no, it's my surfboard. Yeah, it's a short surfboard and I'm got my belly laying on it so that my arms are free enough to do a crawl stroke, to swim out to where I'm supposed to catch the wave, which the irony of me saying catch a wave is too awkward, too funny because I'm not a surfer. But as I'm going out, she's behind me. She's behind me. She's behind me. She's giving me cues. She's telling me to keep going, keep going, keep going. And the last cue that she gave me was keep going until you can't go any farther. Right? So that's the last direction I have. Keep swimming. Keep swimming. I feel like what is it? Dory from what is that show? The fish story, the Nemo story. Just keep swimming. That's what's the cue. Just keep swimming. Well, that's what I did. And I was swimming hard, so hard, my whole back body, my shoulders were starting to cramp, my head was starting to cramp, my neck, because I'm holding it up to keep myself from splashing for fear of knocking out my contacts. And then I'm like really fucking tired. I'm like so tired. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to levitate to stand right on this surfboard. What am I doing out there? And then I pause and I look around and I'm the only one out in the fucking of the middle ocean. In fact, I'm out here and I can't see my instructor. I don't know where she is. And then I hear this far off whisper voice going, enough, you've gone enough. But I had so overshot where she wanted me to be. I was like on the other side of the waves where they were breaking. So then I see my friend who is this beautiful, svelte, yogi surfer, and she's riding over on her surfboard, gracefully sits up, her hair blowing in the wind, and she says, you're halfway to the Galapagos, come on back. And I'm in the middle of tears running down my face, and you're just so graceful and beautiful, and she is a wonderful human being. Do not get me wrong for a moment, but at the moment I wanted to spit on her because she was the one who had referred me to this teacher, this coach, who obviously couldn't speak English, who obviously wasn't speaking loud enough for me to hear. And it was her fault, right? It was her fault that I was stuck in the middle of the ocean. So anyway, I followed my friend and we went back where I was supposed to be. And sure enough, not only did I get on the surfboard, I didn't levitate, but I was able to get on and ride far enough that the teacher said, well done, let's do it again. So then I had to swim back out and do it again. But the panic attack happened between the time when I recognized that I didn't have any energy left to swim farther, which also meant I didn't have any energy left to swim back, even though the current would take me. And I felt abandoned. I felt tricked. And that caused me to, like, as Stephen Cope says, the calm abiding space, it fell out from underneath me. I had put my trust into someone else. And when that trust felt violated, the bottom fell out and the tears came. And it reminded me now, the moment when I came back to consciousness after having a bicycle accident and concussion. On that state, I was laying on the side of the road and I had an awareness that I didn't want to die here. And that was the closest thing that I could remember, in the sense of, here I am in the middle of the ocean. Apparently my coach isn't going to help me. She doesn't have what I need. So I have to rely on myself. And yes, it was helpful to have that second voice of my friend speaking English and encouraging me to come back, and that I was going to be okay. But it really did come down to owning that it was up to me. That if I wanted to get back to some sense of stability, panic was not going to solve the situation. And so I started to swim. Now, maybe it's obvious. I don't love surfing. I don't love the ocean. But I was able to overcome that panic attack built on what was basically a prolonged state of anxiety. So we talk about that trait and the condition. I was already starting to tap into the trait condition of my anxiety, feeling like I needed to perform and to prove myself. And then on top of that, I had this episode of an experience where the bottom fell out. And obviously I wasn't enough in my head to realize that I was all I needed. And that was the shift that helped me to come to terms with, one, reestablishing my expectations of my teacher, so that by the time we came back together, I came back from the Galapagos and she came up from wherever I was supposed to be. We met. My expectations had shifted completely, because now I knew more about what she was able to do, both in terms of her English language, and also in terms of her voice and volume, and the clarity of her meeting me, that if I wanted to do this, it was really a matter of doing it. Will I do it again? Maybe, maybe not. But I like the idea that I'm left with, in the sense that we do have to sometimes push ourselves to the edge in order to remind ourselves of where we stand and why we stand there. It's okay that I don't want to surf. It's okay, in fact, that honestly, what I learned after I came home from that trip is I don't belong in that team of other teachers, the studio itself. Not long after that, we parted ways and I went independent. And I don't know that I would have come to that conclusion, honestly, if I hadn't been forced to own my own shit out there in the middle of the ocean, and then decide to forge my own way and accept what guidance was available, even if it was far less than the guidance that I had anticipated and hoped for in this adventure. So I hope I don't have to have another deep anxiety attack like that again. And that's saying something given all that all that we have endured with this pandemic in the last 2 years, to not have a panic attack when my business was closed, to not have a panic attack when there's no money to pay for rent because there's no clients able to come to the studio, to not have a panic attack in fear about the health and safety of my children and my family, my clients, and my own well-being, or honestly, what would have been worse for me, at least in my hypothetical anxiety space, is that if I became a super spreader myself, my studio or myself. So I take great pride in saying that the last attack was in 2016. And I hope that it stays there. But in the meantime, I'll find ways to tickle the edge of my practice that are a little more honoring of this calm, abiding space as my foundation, because that is where real transformation and growth happen in a way in which is honoring of our story and where we're going. So that's my story. And I welcome any thoughts, questions, or perspectives.
Oh my God, this hits home so, oh my God. Just a couple of years ago, I went jet skiing in the harbor in Ocean City on the Bay side. It was a really active harbor. Apparently there was no speed limit because there were little cigarette
Yeah.
boats just ripping up and down. There were no like established lanes. People would just cross in front of each other. If they were going fast enough, they would just do it right in the nick of time kind of thing. Tons of wakes and waves going everywhere. And I thought the same thing. I got to wear my contacts. I can't wear glasses out there. First wave that hit me knocked out both my contacts. I can't see beyond about 2 feet in front of me. Anything more than 10 feet away is just colors, maybe some shape definition.
Yeah.
I was in the middle of the harbor on a jet ski for the very first time in my life. And there are these boats ripping around me and I can't see them. I don't know what to do. I was in full panic. I'm not quite sure how I made it out there. I think I found another person in the group and followed them as best I could. At one point, I met the business end of a cigar boat. Just as I passed, he was right behind me. People screaming and all kinds of stuff. I was petrified. And yeah, the solution is goggles. Wear goggles in the ocean.
Well,
but I didn't know
that the wake concept, what I found was interesting when I was actually riding on the surfboard is that it was this young kid, and I guess he was probably somewhere between 7 and 10, and he was a hot dog on his surfboard. And I don't know that he was intending, but he was coming so close to me that I thought I was going to run him over. And that to me is bad form. But my teacher was like, oh no, you just keep going. You ride your wave, you keep going. And I was like, I'm not going to run over some kid. But he was either super confident or super unaware of my anxiety, obviously. But that was the norm, that cutting close, which if I was driving in a car, I would have flipped him off and been angry. So here I am without the protection, right? But I was just flabbergasted as to, yes, we rely on our eyes for seeing, right? And we take in so much. In fact, Brene Brown even articulates it that our biology is set to use our eyes to determine fact and truth and to assess our circumstances. So when I can't see, the whole world feels so much more threatening. Then to be in a world that I don't speak, that of the ocean, that of water, right? I want firm, solid ground beneath my feet. So we will be talking about grounding tonight in our next wave for our teacher training program. But grounding and the ocean are not antithetical. In fact, in some ways, water makes the grounding energy that much more conductive, but it is not a language that I'm comfortable with. So will you, what is it called? What are those fast things called? That thing that you did?
What? Oh, jet ski.
Jet ski. I couldn't remember the name. Will you jet ski again?
Yeah, I would. If I
Okay.
had goggles this time, I would.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Goggles. Goggles are the secret. All right. Take care.
Well,
Thanks.
thank you very much.
Bye.
See you.